Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Jessica Devereaux in Baltimore. A new study reveals that the fast food industry costs taxpayers $7 billion a year in public assistance because of low-wage workers. According to Ken Jacobs of the University of California, Berkeley, which compiled the data, dependence on public assistance is the rule rather than the exception for fast food jobs. Jack Temple joins us now to discuss all this. Jack provides writing, research, and communication support to NELP's minimum wage campaign. Thanks for joining us, Jack.
Thanks so much.
So let's get right into the numbers. What percentage of fast food workers rely on some form of public assistance?
Yeah, well, this is the really shocking finding that leads the report. So when you look at frontline fast food workers, the cashiers, the cooks, all the restaurant workers that we think of as the sort of low-wage workers, the frontline workers that make up this industry, we find that over half, 52%, actually rely on some form of public assistance to support themselves or their families. And so, as you mentioned in the opening, and as Ken Jacobs said in the Berkeley report, public assistance is part of the business model for the fast food industry. It's not an exception. It's not something that only a few workers need in order to make ends meet. It's part and parcel of the industry itself. And that's a problem. It's a symptom of the fact that the industry is basically built on low-wage jobs that leave workers with no resources in order to afford basic necessities.
Jack, how many families actually depend on fast food wage earner as their primary household income?
Yeah, so this is another important statistic because there's a lot of myths about the fast food industry. In the sense, which I think I'm sure you've heard before, is that the fast food industry is generally teenagers or young workers. Very few have kids. They're generally working for side money. And even if that was true, maybe at one time, it's certainly no longer the case today. And the data really show this. Given the fact that over the past couple decades, growing numbers of low-wage workers growing numbers of workers actually throughout the economy have found themselves relying on low-wage work. We see older workers, more workers trying to support children in these traditionally low-wage industries. And so for fast food, for example, 70% of all fast food workers are over the age of 20. The median age in fast food is almost 29 years old. So these are adult workers, not teens. And a third of these adult workers are supporting children at home. And so these workers are on very meager wages trying to support families.
So as you said, a third of fast food workers actually support a family. What other sort of findings or preconceived conceptions that we have about fast food workers that you found out through your research?
Well, I think what we've been learning, over the last year, as I'm sure you've followed, there have been growing numbers of strikes and protests across the country. Most recently, around Labor Day, there were around protests in 60 different cities across the country of fast food workers walking off the job and demanding higher wages. And I think what we've learned throughout this time is that the fast food industry, the reality is very much different than what you hear at the corporate level. For example, you hear corporations say that the fast food industry is a launching pad, that workers may start out earning low wages, but could move up to become managers or open their own franchise someday. And the reality is very different. Managerial positions make up just 2% of the fast food industry. Franchise owners make up just 1% of the fast food industry. And so by and large, it's these frontline workers, the ones that are relying on public assistance in order to make ends meet and support their families, that make up basically over 90% of the entire industry. It's not an industry where you can start out flipping burgers or making change at the cash register and have a plausible chance of owning your own franchise one day or becoming the manager at a restaurant. And the other surprising part of the fast food industry is that almost unlike any other industry, this is an industry where it's major companies, major multinational chains that are driving the trends that we're seeing across the industry. And so it's not small mom and pop shops that can't afford higher wages. It's not the small businesses that we often hear about when we talk about raising the minimum wage. These are multinational companies like McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, and they're highly profitable companies. McDonald's alone made about $5.5 billion worth of profits last year. The CEO, made several millions in executive compensation. And so this is a highly profitable industry, and it's based on a business model of paying poverty-level wages.
Wow, really fascinating study, and we really appreciate you being on the Real News Network.
Thank you so much for your time.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.